Hello there, dear friends, and welcome once again to the Relaxed Fantasy Review. Today, we're continuing on with Sebastian Crow's Guide to Drakenheim, and we're covering the new subclasses that have been created in this book. And today we're going to be talking about a Barbarian subclass, the Haze Rager. Drakenheim, for those of you who don't know, is a campaign that was made by the Dungeon Dudes, my fellow D&D YouTubers. And their campaign takes place in a city that has been overrun with eldritch magic. And one of the things that this eldritch magic has created is a haze, a sort of magical fog that permeates the city. If you spend time in the haze, you can become contaminated. Contamination is this function that functions kind of like exhaustion, where it reduces the amount of healing you can have. At higher levels of contamination, it can weaken you, giving you disadvantage, and eventually, if you gain 6 levels of it, you transform into a monster, and it's just like gaining 6 levels of exhaustion. Your character's essentially dead. But the Haze Rager embraces contamination in a very unique way. We're going to go over the details in just a moment. Before we do, though, I'd like to let you know, Relax Fantasy Review has memberships. For just $1 a month, you can support me here on YouTube and get a couple benefits. First, you get a little badge next to your name in the comments, letting folks know that you're a supporter, but you also get early access to my videos. I upload videos Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and I upload them a day earlier for members only. So if that interests you, you can click the join button just below the video down there. If it doesn't, that's totally fine. I understand, and I'm very thankful that you're here anyways, watching my content and supporting me here on YouTube. So thank you. Barbarians choose their subclass at level 3, and at level 3 you're going to get Contaminated Fury. While you are raging, you get to add extra damage to your attacks. Once per turn, you can add 1d8 to a weapon attack. This goes up to 2d8 and 3d8 as you level up. But additionally, you also can choose to deal extra damage by intentionally gaining a level of contamination. This is effectively a contaminated smite, where you hit someone, take an extra level of contamination, and get 2d8 extra damage on the hit. Now keep in mind that contamination is not something you can just sleep away. You have to get it removed by magic, which, is a costly thing. And therefore, this extra damage, pretty much, unless you're in an emergency situation where you have to kill something immediately and you want to smack it really hard, you probably won't be using the Contaminated Smite very often. But the extra damage is still nice. Once per turn is nothing to scoff at, so I give this an 8 out of 10. But then you have something that makes it actually a little better. The Inured to Corruption feature, and this states that when a creature casts Purge Contamination on you, this is a spell that can remove contamination from your body. It's usually a pretty rough process, it costs a lot of money, and it gives you exhaustion levels based on how many levels of contamination you had. If you had 3 levels of contamination, you gain 3 levels of exhaustion, and then have to sleep those off. Inured to Corruption says that in actuality, when a creature does something that removes contamination from you, it doesn't cost the extra funds, it doesn't use the material components, and you don't gain exhaustion. So all the negatives of contamination, of getting it purged anyway, are not applicable for you. So it's very easy for you to get rid of it, and that is a fantastic feature, especially in Drakenheim. Now, obviously, if you're not playing a Drakenheim campaign, this feature means nothing to you, but assuming that you are, this is a 9 out of 10 thing for sure. Then at level 6, you get 2 more powers. The first one is Octarine Blood. This grants you 4 damage resistances: Necrotic, Poison, Psychic, and Radiant. This is, of course, on top of the bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing you would get from raging, and this is an amazing list. Poison, necrotic, and psychic are common damage types in Drakenheim, and I'd say poison's the most common you'd find in the game anyway. And then Radiant's a little less common, but still not a bad thing to have. And on top of that, your maximum hit points cannot be reduced by in any way. So that's awesome, and I think that with all of that extra resistance, this is 10 out of 10. This is a really great feature. Then at level 6, you get the feature Already a Monster. This states that the functions of contamination, the reduced healing, the disadvantage, all the things that contamination hurts you, you can ignore them, except for the monstrous transformation. So that means you can get up to 5 levels of contamination and nothing happens to you. You just ignore everything. It's only when you get that 6 that you lose your character. On top of that, when you become contaminated, you have to roll a die to see whether or not you mutate in some way. These are either cosmetic negatives, like your hair falls out, or your teeth fall out, or your skin starts to slough off, but don't have any mechanical disadvantage, or they can have some crazy body modification sort of things, giving you tentacles, or giving you the ability to climb walls, or giving you blind sight. There's a lot of cool ones in there, but normally when you mutate, you have to roll on a table. This Haze Rager Barbarian, when they mutate, they roll twice and pick the results of those 2 that they want. So mutating actually can be a positive thing for them and give them powers of their choice sometimes. Overall, once again, assuming you're in Drakenheim, this is a 9 out of 10 feature for sure. Now, at level 10, you gain the power Consume Corruption. This lets you cast Purge Contamination a number of times per day equal to your proficiency bonus. Purge Contamination, like mentioned earlier, is specific to campaigns that have contamination effects, but you don't need material components to do it, and you can't cast it on yourself, which is kind of unfortunate. It'd be cool if you could just contaminate yourself up and then purge it out and contaminate yourself up again. That would actually make your Contaminated Fury really good. But the fact that you can just get it out of other characters is really, really nice. And you do it without the material components too. So this is a pretty good ability in a Drakenheim campaign. I say that this is 9 out of 10 once again. The other thing you get at level 10 is Voices in Your Head. The idea behind this Eldritch Contamination and Haze is that it is an otherworldly magic power. And so with Voices in Your Head, once per long rest, you can contact Other Plane. That's the spell Contact Other Plane, which allows you to speak to some sort of powerful entity out there in the multiverse. Also, Contact Other Plane requires a saving throw to not go insane for a day as you're trying to contact some creature that is beyond your reckoning. The Haze Rager, even if they fail that saving throw, can just choose to take a level of contamination instead of going crazy. Which is not even a thing to them. Like, they don't even care about contamination most of the time. So, this is nice. I mean, it's a good information gathering spell. It doesn't really do anything for your party unless you're trying to get a secret of some kind. But it's still a good spell. And you just get it once per day for free. So, 8 out of 10. Finally, at level 14, you get One with the Mists. This allows you to cast Gaseous Form, proficiency bonus times per day. And Gaseous Form is a really good spell for mobility and for utility purposes. It's the kind of spell that genuinely would let your barbarian solve problems, as opposed to just, solve problems by breaking things. And it's genuinely a really good spell, and I say 9 out of 10 for that. But finally, the Breath of the Haze power. This is the final capstone feature. When you go into a rage, you get this AoE, a 15-foot swirl of the haze itself. Effectively, you summon the Eldritch Haze to you. The swirling haze, you can choose creatures that are immune to it, but anyone you don't choose has to make saving throw, an intelligence save, or take 3d8 psychic damage from the haze effect. It also halves their speed and stops them from taking reactions while they're in it. This is very similar to the spell Spirit Guardians, but it isn't a spell. It's just automatically done whenever you rage. So your Barbarian effectively gets a Spirit Guardians-esque effect, which is reserved for clerics and some paladins, but they're a barbarian, so they want to be in the thick of it no more than anything. And, stopping reactions means that you can pretty much move around without taking opportunity attacks. Slower movement means that you've got some good battlefield control going on, and the extra damage is nothing to scoff at. By now, your Contaminated Fury's doing an extra 3d8 on a hit once per turn anyway. So you're just dealing more and more damage to these creatures, and yeah, it's a really, really good effect, and I say that this is a 9 out of 10 AoE power. And overall, the Haze Rager is a 9 out of 10 subclass. It really needs to be in Drakenheim to work. If you're playing this in just any other campaign, like if you're doing this in, the Baldur's Gate Descent into Avernus, or if you're playing Candlekeep, or you're playing the Tales of the Yawning Portal, or you're playing in the Feywild, anywhere where the haze doesn't exist, then this doesn't really do much. You get a little bit of extra damage, some damage resistances, and a couple spells, and an AoE. And the main feature that you can resist contamination effects, change your mutations, contaminate yourself by doing this weird little smite power. All of this is not really relevant otherwise, but even if you ignore those things, you've still got extra damage, extra mobility, extra resistances, and it's not bad. Like, nothing in this is terrible. In fact, it's all good. I say 9 out of 10, especially though if you're playing in Drakenheim. If you do decide to go to Drakenheim, this Barbarian subclass could be a really, really potent one. This has been the Relaxed Fantasy Review. If you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe down below. Have a look for the join button down there, as well as a link that I will leave for Sebastian Crow's Guide to Drakenheim. It was published by Ghostfire Games, and the Dungeon Dudes are fantastic YouTubers. If you haven't checked them out already, you should. And, yeah, have a good one, my friends.